Honestly, I've been feeling a little dead on mainstream movies lately. Sure, there have been some out this year that I've enjoyed, but I hadn't run into one yet that really hit it out of the park for me. Haven't found one that I know is really going to stick with me in the world for decades to come. But there is nothing like sitting in the theater and realizing that you have just witnessed the launch of a new classic, one that is going to have impact for decades to come. I just had that experience with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit worried about this movie. The directorial team behind it, Lord and Miller, are known for making films where they just absolutely hit it out of the park on the first one, but then they get a sequel and then they end up dropping the ball on that sequel. I think that they knew that they could not let that happen with Across the Spider-Verse sequel to Into the Spider-Verse. They brought in 3 extra directors and delayed the film an entire year to finish the animation. And I gotta say, I think that they succeeded in making the best animated sequel that I've ever seen. The first thing to talk about is how the team outdid themselves on the animation for this movie. Into the Spider-Verse was famous for how it created its own unique art style, mixing elements of 2D and 3D animation along with comic book art and panel layouts. We got little glimpses of more art styles as we glimpsed other worlds, but as we actually spend time exploring those other worlds in the sequel, we're treated to how these different art styles can enhance the storytelling. In Gwen's universe, everything is pastel and watercolors. It looks almost dreamlike and surreal. At one point, Gwen is apart from her dad during an argument, and the paint is all blue. But then she hugs him all of a sudden, and from their hug it's animated to look like watercolor paint was just splashed on the page. The artwork sets the mood for each world. From more chill and moody in Gwen's world, reflecting who she is as a character, to the more bright and normal backgrounds of Miles' world, which is the status quo, to the noir-painted settings at a dark world at the end of the film, filled with dark shadows contrasting some very intense colors outlining the characters and locations. But it doesn't stop there. We see stop-motion animation in the form of Legos in the film. Lego Spider-Man is absolutely adorable. We see live action integrated into this universe. Comic panels and text will pop up just very briefly to either enhance a joke or an action or give you a little bit of detailed information. There's so much. I've already seen some accuse this film of being overwhelming, but what I love about these movies is that they are unwilling to conform to just one Disney Pixar style of art. The gloves are off to show that there is no limitation to what you can express with animation. In a lot of ways, it is the top form of art. But the most important thing here is all these crazy visuals that must have taken forever to render did not stop the filmmakers from developing the most important part of any movie, the story. A good sequel should be able to expand on the character's story and the stakes. Across the Spider-Verse takes a character like Gwen, who didn't get too much development in the first movie, and gives us a chance to see that she actually has a lot of inner turmoil. It takes that and not only uses it to give her own character development, but it uses it to tie her into Miles' story, with how much he has in common with the rest of the Spider people at large. It sets up the main conflict of how Miles desperately wants to escape the same fate as the rest of the Spider people, with the question of, is that even possible if he wants to continue to do the right thing? The movie is not afraid to go into really dark and intense areas when it needs to. It's not afraid to get super emotional. It weaves the superpowers, fantastical multiverse storyline, and crazy characters with a very grounded and human story. It deals with the idea of failing and losing no matter how much you try to do the right thing. It deals with loneliness, friendships, and family, realizing your priorities and who shapes you the most. As the movie continued to develop all of this, it made the characters of Miles and Gwen resonate with me even more. And that made the emotional payoffs pack a pretty big punch. And I just love all the setups and the payoffs of this film, like Miles trying something out with his powers, which comes in really handy later on. Setting up that, spoilers, there's a world out there without a Spider-Man and how that comes into play later. It's really exciting. That's what's really been lost on me on so many movies lately, though, is the emotional investment. This movie takes that and says, you want emotional investment? We will give you emotional investment. But there's so many more little details to appreciate about this film. There's the fact that each character not only has their own unique style of art, but their unique personality that the movie is able to convey in such a small amount of time. There's the little things like the fact that everyone is different in every universe, but J. Jonah Jameson always remains the same. There's the fact that when they go to the Spider Society, there's a car painted like Spider-Man that's called Peter Parked Car. This is the best movie ever. If I were to point out any flaws with the movie, the only one would really be the length. There's been a lot of movies coming out lately that I think would have benefited if they weren't drawn out so long. It's rare that a long length for a movie feels justified, and it really doesn't feel that way for Across the Spider-Verse. The exposition goes on for a long time. You can hear pauses or moments held for a lot longer than they needed to be just to draw things out. I don't know why some studios seem to think that longer movies mean more epic or more engaging, but I think that Across the Spider-Verse would have benefited just a bit by being a bit tighter. I also really wish we would have gotten more Peter B. Parker. He was the standout of the first film, and we don't get too much of him in this film, even though what we get is pretty good. I hope that we'll see more of him in the sequel, but other than that, this is an amazing film. But now I'm concerned that we're going to have an Infinity War situation with this movie, where Infinity War set the bar so high before its cliffhanger that it was almost impossible for the next movie to live up to it. But if they do the impossible, if this creative team sticks the landing, the Spider-Verse trilogy might be the greatest superhero trilogy of all time. And it's in the form of animation, because Hollywood hasn't really respected animation in the past. They've written it off as just for kids or not real movies. This movie spits in the face of all of that. It's just as dark and violent as a live-action superhero film. Its storytelling and characters are deep and layered. It's one of the most creative films I've seen in years. This movie is going to have impact. In terms of the kinds of stories that are told with mainstream animated movies and the kinds of unique animated styles that are explored. We already saw some influence that the first movie had on other animated features, but as this one blows the lid off of their own creative visions and opens itself up to so many possibilities and makes a lot of money doing it, I hope that other studios see the possibilities of animated films as well. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse inspired me with its creativity. It brought back my excitement for superhero films. I'm not only excited to see its sequel, but I'm excited to see how this movie influences other superhero films and animation and filmmaking at large. If you haven't seen the movie yet, I absolutely recommend that you do. But if you have seen the movie already, what did you think about it? Tell me in the comments below. As always, like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you for listening to me gush about this amazing film. It is absolutely the kind of film that we need to support. And speaking of films, this week, my horror short film, The Purple Hand, finally releases. Please subscribe for that. And if you want to support all of my work on here, please check out my Patreon. It costs only $5 to sign up. That's all I got for you guys today, and I will see you guys next time.